The flagship UES Titan exploded into burning shrapnel, the twisted hull scraps drifting through the void of the Zeta Reticuli system. Captain Darren Mason stared in horror at his viewscreen, watching the Nausicaan warships annihilate vessel after vessel of the United Earth Federation fleet. Ambushed by the technologically superior Nausicaan Empire, the humans were being slaughtered. Mason gripped his command chair as another explosion rocked the bridge of the UES Valor. Alarms blared and sparks showered from overloaded consoles. The cruiser's shields were failing, weapons offline. It was only a matter of time before they too were destroyed. "Sir, what are your orders?" Lieutenant Jenna Rollins asked, her face grim. Mason opened his mouth to give the command to abandon ship, to save as many of his crew as possible before the Valor was torn apart. But before he could utter a word, a priority transmission from UEF High Command crackled through the comm system. "Captain Mason, this is Admiral Graves," a gruff voice said. "We have a top-secret project that could turn the tide of this war. Lead the remnants of the fleet to these coordinates on Earth's moon, a classified facility. We've discovered an ancient fleet of powerful warships, secretly restored. They may be our only hope." Mason stared at the coordinates, hardly daring to believe. An ancient fleet on the moon. It seemed impossible. But with the Nausicaans poised to wipe out humanity and claim the resource-rich planets for themselves, any chance at survival had to be taken. He punched in the coordinates, and the Valor leapt into warp drive, narrowly escaping another barrage of enemy fire. As the stars streaked by, Mason wondered what secrets awaited them on the moon, and if this ancient fleet would be enough to save the human race from annihilation. The Valor shuddered and groaned as it weaved through the debris field of destroyed ships. Nausicaan vessels prowled the area, searching for survivors to eliminate. Mason's hands flew across the controls, narrowly avoiding a chunk of a destroyed frigate. "I've got multiple bogies on our tail," Lieutenant Rollins called out from her station. Mason gritted his teeth. "Reroute all power to the engines. We have to make it to those coordinates." The Valor surged forward, its damaged hull creaking under the strain. The moon loomed ahead, its cratered surface a welcome sight. Mason scanned for the coordinates Admiral Graves had provided, hoping against hope that this secret facility truly held the key to humanity's survival. "There, I'm detecting an energy signature beneath the surface in the Mare Imbrium region," Ensign Liu reported. Mason nodded. "Take us down, prepare for lunar landing." The Valor touched down on the moon's surface, kicking up clouds of dust. As the ship settled, a hidden hatch opened in the ground nearby, revealing a cavernous hangar bay. Mason and his crew disembarked, weapons at the ready. They were greeted by a woman in a lab coat, her blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun. "Captain Mason, I presume?" she said, extending her hand. "I'm Dr. Eliza Hoffman, lead scientist of Project Prometheus. Welcome to our facility." Mason shook her hand, still on guard. "What is this place, Doctor? Admiral Graves mentioned an ancient fleet." Hoffman smiled. "Follow me and I'll show you." She led them into the facility, past bustling scientists and engineers. They entered a massive hangar, and Mason's jaw dropped. Before them stood a fleet of sleek, alien-looking ships, their hulls gleaming under the lights. They were unlike anything he had ever seen, with strange organic curves and shimmering energy fields. "Behold the Promethean fleet," Hoffman said proudly. "Discovered during a mining operation decades ago, buried beneath the lunar surface. We believe they are of extraterrestrial origin, far more advanced than any human technology." Mason approached one of the ships, his hand ghosting over its surface. "And you think these ships can help us fight the Nausicaans?" Hoffman nodded. "We've been studying and reverse engineering their technology for years. These ships are equipped with weapons and defenses that far outstrip anything in the UEF fleet. With your crew at the helm, Captain, the Promethean fleet may be our only hope." Mason turned to his crew, seeing the mix of hope and trepidation on their faces. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on his shoulders. They had to learn to command these alien ships, and fast. The fate of humanity depended on it. As the Valor's crew began training with the Promethean ships, Mason struggled to adapt to the strange advanced technology. He felt out of his depth, the loss of his comrades in the recent battle still raw. But he found an unexpected ally in Chief Engineer Michael Donovan, a grizzled veteran who had served on the Valor for decades. "You're doing fine, Captain," Donovan reassured him, as Mason struggled with the unfamiliar controls of the Promethean flagship. "It's a lot to take in, but you're a quick study. Trust your instincts." Mason nodded, grateful for Donovan's steady presence. With his guidance, Mason slowly gained confidence in his ability to command the alien vessel. Meanwhile, Dr. Hoffman pored over the data they had gleaned from the Promethean ships, searching for any clues about their origins. She had always been fascinated by the idea of extraterrestrial life, and the discovery of these ships had been a dream come true. As she delved deeper into the ship's systems, Hoffman stumbled upon a cryptic message hidden within the coding. It was in an alien language, but the translation software she had developed managed to decipher a few key phrases. What she read made her blood run cold. The message spoke of an ancient war, a conflict that had raged across the galaxy eons ago. The Promethean fleet had been created to fight an enemy that sounded all too familiar, a race that consumed the energy of stars, leaving only darkness in their wake. Hoffman sat back in her chair, her mind racing. If the Prometheans had fought the Nausicaans before, or at least a similar foe, then perhaps their technology held the key to defeating them once again. She had to share this discovery with Captain Mason and Admiral Graves immediately. But as she reached for her communicator, an alarm blared throughout the facility. The Nausicaans had found them. The battle for humanity's survival was about to begin, and the Promethean fleet would face its ultimate test. As the Promethean fleet hummed with newfound life beneath the lunar surface, Dr. Hoffman pored over the treasure trove of data contained within the alien ship's logs. Her eyes widened as she uncovered a shocking revelation about the Nausicaans' past. "Captain Mason, you need to see this," Hoffman said, her voice trembling with excitement and trepidation. She brought up a holographic display, revealing a series of intricate alien glyphs. According to these records, the Nausicaans were not always the warmongering race we know today. They were once a peaceful civilization, but a rogue faction led by a warlord named Karos broke away and embraced a path of conquest and destruction. Mason studied the glyphs, his brow furrowed. And the Promethean fleet? What was their role in all of this? "The Prometheans were created to stop Karos and his followers," Hoffman explained. But the conflict ended in a stalemate, with both sides disappearing from the galactic stage. I believe that the current Nausicaan Empire, led by High Commander Pryler, is a descendant of Karos's faction, seeking to finish what their ancestors started. Mason's mind raced with the implications of this discovery. Armed with this knowledge, he knew they had a chance to end the war once and for all. He gathered his crew in the facility's command center, a plan forming in his mind. "We have a new mission," Mason announced, his voice filled with determination. "We're going to infiltrate the Nausicaan homeworld and capture High Commander Pryler. If we can force a surrender and negotiate a peace treaty, we can put an end to this conflict." Lieutenant Commander Elena Romanova, Mason's second-in-command, stepped forward. "Sir, with all due respect, that's a suicide mission. The Nausicaan homeworld will be heavily guarded." Mason nodded. "I know the risks, but we have no choice. I'm assembling a team of our best and brightest. Elena, you'll be my right hand on this mission. Jack," he turned to Lieutenant Jack Harper, the Valor's skilled pilot, "you'll be our ace in the hole. We need your expertise to get us in and out of there alive." Harper grinned, cracking his knuckles. "You can count on me, Captain. I'll fly circles around those Nausicaan bastards." As the team prepared for the daring mission, an urgent transmission came through from UEF High Command. Admiral Graves appeared on the screen, his face grim. "Captain Mason, we have a situation. The Nausicaans have launched a massive assault on Earth. They're intent on destroying our last stronghold and wiping out humanity once and for all. You must lead the Promethean fleet in a counterattack to save Earth, while also carrying out your mission to capture Pryler. The fate of our species rests on your shoulders." Mason felt the weight of responsibility bearing down on him. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the battle ahead. "Understood, Admiral. We won't let you down." The Promethean fleet ascended from the lunar facility, the alien ships gleaming in the starlight. Mason took his place on the bridge of the flagship, his crew at their stations. They set a course for the Nausicaan homeworld, determined to end the war and save humanity from annihilation. As they approached the heavily fortified Nausicaan system, Mason divided his forces. The bulk of the Promethean fleet would engage the Nausicaan armada in a desperate bid to draw their attention away from Earth, while Mason's hand-picked team would covertly make their way to the surface of the Nausicaan homeworld. The Promethean ships clashed with the Nausicaan fleet in a dazzling display of advanced weaponry and tactical maneuvering. Explosions lit up the void as the two sides exchanged fire, the fate of Earth hanging in the balance. Amidst the chaos of the battle, Mason's team managed to slip past the Nausicaan defenses and land on the surface of their homeworld. They emerged from their ship, weapons at the ready, prepared to infiltrate the heart of the enemy's stronghold and capture High Commander Pryler. As they made their way through the alien cityscape, Mason's mind raced with the implications of their mission. If they succeeded, they could end the war and save countless lives. But if they failed, humanity's last hope would be extinguished, and the Nausicaans would be free to continue their reign of terror across the galaxy. The team approached the towering spire that housed the Nausicaan High Command, their hearts pounding in their chests. They knew that the fate of humanity rested on their shoulders, and failure was not an option. Mason signaled to his team, and they breached the entrance to the spire, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The final battle for the future of the galaxy had begun, and the crew of the UES Valor would stop at nothing to ensure victory. Mason's heart raced as he piloted the captured Nausicaan scout ship through the enemy's defenses. The ship's cloaking device, reverse-engineered from the Promethean technology, allowed them to slip past the Nausicaan fleet undetected. Lieutenant Commander Romanova and Lieutenant Harper sat beside him, their faces etched with tension. As they approached Nausicaa Prime, the Nausicaan homeworld, Mason's mind flashed back to the briefing aboard the Promethean flagship. Dr. Hoffman's voice echoed in his head. "High Commander Pryler's fortress is located in the heart of the capital city. It's heavily guarded. But with the Promethean armor's stealth capabilities, you should be able to infiltrate it." The scout ship touched down on the outskirts of the city, its landing obscured by the dense jungle that surrounded the metropolis. Mason and his team disembarked, their Promethean armor shimmering as it adapted to the alien environment. They moved swiftly through the undergrowth, the armor's advanced sensors guiding them towards their target. As they neared the fortress, the true scale of their task became apparent. The structure loomed before them, its walls bristling with weaponry and patrolled by countless Nausicaan soldiers. Mason signaled to his team, and they activated their armor's stealth mode. Shimmering out of visibility, they crept towards the fortress, evading the guards with ease. Once inside, they navigated the labyrinthine corridors, their armor's sensors alerting them to the presence of enemy patrols. They moved like ghosts, unseen and unheard, until they reached the command center. Mason's heart pounded as he realized they were on the cusp of confronting Pryler himself. Suddenly a hail of energy blasts erupted from the shadows. Mason's team scattered, seeking cover as Pryler's elite guard, led by the formidable Commander Xerus, emerged from their hiding spots. The Promethean armor absorbed the brunt of the attack, but Mason knew they couldn't hold out forever. Harper let out a cry of pain as a blast caught him in the chest, his armor sparking and sizzling. He crumpled to the ground, clutching his wound as Romanova dragged him to safety. Mason gritted his teeth, returning fire with his pulse rifle. The air sizzled with energy as the two sides exchanged blows. In the chaos of the firefight, Mason lost sight of Romanova. He could only hope that she had managed to find cover and was fighting to rejoin him. With Harper wounded and Romanova separated, Mason knew he had to press on alone. He surged forward, his armor's enhanced strength and speed allowing him to plow through the Nausicaan guards. As he burst into the command center, he found himself face to face with Pryla. The Nausicaan leader stood before him, a sneer on his reptilian face. Mason raised his rifle, but Pryla was faster. The two leaders clashed in a brutal hand-to-hand battle, trading blows that would have shattered bone if not for their armor. In Earth's orbit, Chief Engineer Donovan watched as the Promethean fleet engaged the Nausicaan armada. The ancient ships, their hulls glowing with eldritch energy, tore through the enemy vessels with devastating efficiency. But the Nausicaans kept coming, their numbers seeming endless. Donovan barked orders to his crew, directing the fleet's movements as they fought to defend Earth. The Promethean ships' shields flared as they absorbed the Nausicaan onslaught, but Donovan knew they couldn't hold out forever. They needed Mason to succeed in his mission, to end this war before it consumed them all. Back on Nausicaa Prime, Mason and Pryla grappled, locked in a deadly embrace. As they struggled, Pryla hissed in Mason's ear, his voice dripping with malice. "You think this is about conquest, human? You have no idea what true power lies hidden on your pitiful planet." Mason's eyes widened as Pryla spoke of an ancient artifact, buried deep within Earth's crust. An artifact that held the key to unlocking the full potential of the Promethean fleet. In that moment, he realized that the battle for Earth was more than just a fight for survival. It was a race against time to secure a weapon that could change the course of the war. With a roar of fury, Mason redoubled his efforts, his armor straining as he fought to overpower Pryla. The fate of humanity and the galaxy itself hung in the balance as the two leaders clashed, their battle echoing through the halls of the Nausicaan fortress. With a roar of pain and fury, Mason slammed Pryla against the command center wall. The Nausicaan commander laughed even as blood trickled from his split lip. "You think you've won, human?" Pryla spat. "The artifact, the key to ultimate power, it's on your pathetic planet, and my forces will tear your world apart to claim it." Mason's eyes widened at the revelation. He tightened his grip on Pryla's throat. "Where is it?" he demanded. Pryla grinned, his sharp teeth stained red. "The ruins of an ancient city your people call Atlantis." The Nausicaan's words trailed off as he lost consciousness. Mason released him, letting Pryla slump to the floor. His mind raced with this new information. They had to secure the artifact before the Nausicaans could get their hands on it. "Elena!" Mason called out, spotting Lieutenant Commander Romanova entering the command center, her armor scorched from battle. "Take Pryla into custody. I have to get back to Earth." Romanova nodded, her face grim as she surveyed the carnage around them. "Aye, Captain, we'll hold the line here." Mason sprinted back to the scout ship, his heart pounding. He had to reach the artifact first. The fate of Earth, of the entire galaxy, depended on it. The journey back to Earth felt like an eternity, even with the scout ship's advanced propulsion system. Mason pored over the data Pryla had unwittingly provided, cross-referencing it with the Promethean fleet's records. The location of Atlantis, a mere myth to most humans, began to take shape. As soon as the ship entered Earth's atmosphere, Mason pinpointed the coordinates and set the vessel down amidst the dense jungle that now grew where a thriving city once stood millennia ago. He leaped from the cockpit, his Promethean armor shimmering as it adapted to the planet's environment. Mason pushed through the undergrowth, following the armor's sensors as they guided him towards the heart of the ancient ruins. Vines and roots had long since overtaken the crumbling structures, nature reclaiming what had been lost to time. He entered what appeared to be a grand temple, its once magnificent columns now worn and chipped. As he navigated the labyrinthine corridors, Mason's armor alerted him to a series of traps and defenses, still active after countless centuries. Razor-sharp pendulums swung from the ceiling, nearly cleaving Mason in two as he rolled and dodged, his armor sparking as it deflected the deadly blades. Pressure plates triggered spears that shot from the walls, forcing him to contort his body in ways he never thought possible to avoid impalement. Each trap Mason overcame brought him closer to the heart of the temple where the artifact awaited. His armor, pushed to its limits, glowed with the strain of protecting him from the ancient defenses. Finally he reached the central chamber, a vast circular room dominated by a raised dais. Upon it rested a small, unassuming object, no larger than his palm. It pulsed with an otherworldly light, seeming to beckon him forward. But as Mason approached the dais, a blast of energy seared the air beside him. He spun, raising his rifle, and found himself facing a contingent of Nausicaan soldiers. They had managed to infiltrate the ruins, hot on his heels. "Surrender the artifact, human," the lead Nausicaan snarled, his weapon trained on Mason's chest. "You're outnumbered and outmatched." Mason's grip tightened on his rifle. He knew the Nausicaan was right. There were too many of them, and his armor had already sustained heavy damage from the traps, but he couldn't let them claim the artifact, not when the stakes were so high. He dove behind a crumbling pillar as the Nausicaans opened fire, energy blasts scorching the ancient stone. Mason returned fire, his shots finding their marks with deadly precision. But for every Nausicaan that fell, 2 more seemed to take their place. Mason's armor screamed warnings at him as its shields neared collapse. He gritted his teeth, pushing himself to his feet. In a last, desperate charge, he sprinted for the dais, weaving and dodging as the Nausicaans rained fire upon him. He reached the artifact, his hand closing around it just as a searing pain lanced through his side. A lucky shot had found a weak point in his armor, burning through the underlying flesh. But as Mason's fingers touched the artifact, a blinding light filled the chamber. The Nausicaans fell back, shielding their eyes and crying out in confusion. Images flooded Mason's mind, visions of the Promethean fleet's creators, of the artifact's true nature. It was not a weapon, as they had all believed, but a device capable of manipulating the very fabric of time and space. The realization hit Mason like a physical blow. The artifact was too powerful, too dangerous, to be wielded by any one race. In the wrong hands, it could unravel the universe itself. And in that moment he knew what he had to do. Mason turned to face the Nausicaans, the artifact clutched to his chest. "You want this?" he called out, his voice raw with pain and determination. "Then come and get it!" He raised the artifact high and with a wordless cry brought it smashing down upon the dais. The explosion was unlike anything Mason had ever experienced. A wave of pure energy erupted from the shattered artifact, engulfing the chamber in a blinding, searing light. The Nausicaans were instantly vaporized, their armor and weapons crumbling to dust. The entire temple shook and crumbled around Mason as he staggered back, his own armor fracturing and disintegrating under the onslaught of raw power. Agony seared through every nerve as the energy tore at his body. Somehow, through the pain and the chaos, Mason managed to drag himself from the collapsing ruins. He stumbled into the jungle, his vision blurring, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The last thing he saw before unconsciousness claimed him was the silhouette of a Promethean ship descending through the canopy, its hull glinting in the dappled sunlight. Mason awoke to the steady beep of a medical monitor, his body wreathed in bandages and riddled with tubes. He blinked, wincing at the bright lights of the infirmary. "Easy, Captain," a familiar voice said softly. Dr. Hoffman leaned over him, her face etched with concern and relief. "You've been through quite the ordeal." Mason tried to speak, his throat raw and dry. Hoffman held up a hand, silencing him. "The Nausicaans have retreated," she said, answering his unspoken question. "Without Pryla and with the artifact destroyed, they had no reason to continue the fight. The war is over." Tears stung Mason's eyes as the weight of those words sank in. They had won, Earth was safe, but at what cost? He thought of his fallen comrades, of the brave men and women who had given their lives to protect their home. Lieutenant Harper, who had been wounded on Nausicaa Prime, the countless others lost in the battles against the Nausicaan fleet. Their sacrifices had not been in vain, but the scars they left behind, both physical and emotional, would take far longer to heal. As Mason gazed out the infirmary window, taking in the war-torn landscape of Earth, he knew that the road ahead would be long and hard. Cities lay in ruins, entire regions devastated by the conflict. But they had the Promethean fleet now, and the knowledge and technology it contained. With time and with the resilience of the human spirit, they would rebuild, they would heal. Earth had faced many challenges throughout its history, and it had always emerged stronger for them. This time would be no different. Mason closed his eyes, a single tear trailing down his cheek, as he whispered a silent prayer for the fallen, and a promise to those who still lived. They would honor the sacrifices of the past, and they would face the future together. No matter what challenges lay ahead, humanity would endure. The Promethean fleet hung in orbit above the scarred surface of Earth, a symbol of hope, of unity, and of the indomitable will of the human spirit. And as the sun rose over the horizon, casting its light across the war-ravaged planet, a new dawn began, a dawn of rebuilding, of healing, and of the promise of a brighter tomorrow. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.